Hello and welcome to Bookish Brits. If you're wondering why the camera work is so bad, this is Koro and he really wanted, hi sweetie, he really wanted to be in this month's review. And it's probably because I wanted to talk about magical realism. Now, magical realism, I'm going to put this down. Sorry for the shoddy camera work. Let's see if we can get Koro in shot. So, there we go. So magical realism is when a book is firmly based in sort of reality and it has elements, well, fantastical, magical, whatever elements that maybe enhance or add tiny sprinkles to the story. And the reason I love it is that I find it's an incredibly effective device. So just like incidental sci-fi, something I've probably raved about in this channel at some point, where the stories in both are never about the sci-fi or the magic. They're about people. And these just let you explore those people better. So my favourite example of magical realism is Alice Hoffman's Practical Magic. I read this book when I was a teenager. It really made an impression on me. I hadn't read anything quite like it, where the people felt surreal and they had their own flaws and blind spots and joys and messy relationships, and yet there was something else to it that added interest. And she does that so well, Alice Hoffman. She has this beautiful way of writing that draws you in, and she makes, she reminds me that I have a heart. And I loved that about her writing, and it's the same thing that Joanne Harris did in Chocolat, where it's got these tiny sprinkles through it and you're like, is that something else? It's implied in there. And the same with House of Spirits by Isabella Allende. And there's lots of books. I think recently, in the past 10 or 15 years, this has become more mainstream and more prevalent. But when I was growing up, I don't remember reading a lot of books that had this sort of grounding in reality, but had these sprinkles. It was either straight up fantasy or more straight-laced fiction. So that's one of the reasons I love magical realism. It just... And I do think there's an element of real life in that. Like, there are things, and I'm sure we've all had things in our real lives where we just can't explain it, and our logical brains and our scientific minds are just like, okay, I'm just going to ignore that because it doesn't quite... There's something weird. I don't want to look into that too much. It happened. I'm sure there's an explanation, but we're just going to move on. And I feel like it captures that part that is part of our real lives, or those things that we can't explain. And I love that. So I highly recommend reading. There's plenty out there. I think a recent one is meant to be, I haven't read it yet, is The Midnight Library. I've been told that's a great example of magical realism, so I need to dive into that. So if you have any recommendations for me of things that I've missed, please let me know in the comments, because I just found out that the lovely Alice Hoffman wrote 2 prequels and a sequel to Practical Magic I had no idea about, so I need to go back and read those 2. But I'm always on the hunt for making my to-be-read list longer. Please let me know in the comments. And if you have any other thoughts on the genre, let me know. Thanks for watching.